Yes, Alan Schoenberg, founder of Management Recruiters based in Cleveland. That's how I met him.
Welcome to C-Suite Recruiter and our series on Management Recruiter and the genius of Alan Schoenberg. I went to work for MRI at 23 as a recruiter at a management recruiter's office in Cleveland, Ohio. I never met Alan until many years later, after Christian Timbers was already a global search firm and doing about 50 or 60 million in revenue. He was Carol and his wife were friends of ours. Carol was a patient of my wife's. She was a chiropractor. So we got together. But I found in looking back that so many of the innovations in executive search, so the innovations that Christian Timbers brought into search and others did, came from management recruiters.
It is a large, I believe, the largest organization of executive recruiters in the world. I had one little shop, yet Alan would mentor me about business, about all sorts of things. And one day I said, Alan, why do you spend so much time with me? I have this little bitty shop. I can't possibly be of any value to you. Yet every time I ask you to have lunch with me because I've got some sort of problem, you drop everything and have lunch with me. Why? And Alan said, Larry, I see in you somebody who can really make an impact in the world. This business is not for you, but you need to make money. You're going to do something else that's going to be even bigger, and I want to make sure you stay on that path. The late, great Alan Schoenberg. Rest in peace. Well, fake news is a broad term. To me, it doesn't just mean news items, news stories that they get wrong, that they misreport. It's things that the media ignores or downplays because it does not advance their agenda.
We have just heard from the CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey. He tweeted this, quote, "Our communication around our actions on the New York Post article was not great, and blocking URL sharing via tweet or DM with zero context as to why we're blocking, unacceptable." Huh. Writes like a child. Manages the company like one, too. By the way, the Biden campaign is able to call the story, quote, discredited, because big tech is trying to discredit it. No reporter has taken a look at the story and concluded, oh, sure, this is a Russian fabrication. Putin did this. That's ridiculous. So the Biden campaign is using big tech as a pretext for not responding. And big tech, of course, is trying to prevent you from reading it at all.
One of the big agenda items of the media, of course, is the idea that the police engage in systemic racism against blacks. Now, about 2-3 weeks ago, cop is running after a suspect. Cop sees a man who resembles the suspect in a backyard. Cop shoots and kills the man who resembles the suspect, except he shot the wrong man. If you're just now hearing about this, I'll tell you why. Because this took place in Idaho. The cop, white. The man in pursuit, white. The man shot and killed, white. Crickets, because it doesn't advance the agenda. Here's another one. Believe it or not, over 2 months ago, a Northern California cop knelt on a suspect's neck for 5 minutes. Suspect died. There's even video. Suspect was even a Navy vet. Why haven't you heard about this? Because the suspect was a Filipino American, did not advance the agenda.
Damn!
Well, actually, I was influenced by my roommate. When I was in college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do other than I wanted to be a writer. But I knew you couldn't make any money as being a writer, so I wanted to do something practical, but I wasn't sure what it was. My roommate was taking the LSAT. I asked him what the LSAT was. He said it's so I can get into law school. I said, why do you want to go to law school? He talked about the benefits of being a lawyer. Even if you don't practice law, you understand the Constitution, you understand your rights, so you can defend yourself better than you could if you didn't go to law school. For that reason alone, it was valuable. Also, it's flexible. You can practice, you can not practice, you can do all sorts of things with a legal background, and that's why I went to law school. I wasn't one of those kids who saw Perry Mason and said, that's what I want to do. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. All I wanted to do was to be a writer, and I knew I wanted to do something that made a difference, but I hadn't really figured out the course yet. Oh yeah, I practiced for almost 3 years at a firm now called Squire, Patton and Boggs. At the time, it was about 150 lawyers. Now it's got over 2,000 lawyers. And I was a litigator, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But I also felt that my stage was too small. I felt I had to make a bigger contribution, and I was determined to do so. So I went into business, and then I went into TV and radio, and you know the rest of the story. Oh, indeed. I've lost two that I've known for over 40 years. I'll tell you about one. His name is Will, and he was a professor of law in Ohio. Known him since 1977. We can't even speak now because of his hostility towards President Trump. Now, my friend has a kid with special needs, and he's convinced, my friend is, that Donald Trump, quote, mocked a handicapped reporter. Now, there's a website called Catholics for Trump, which discusses this. And Trump did use that gyration motion to mock a reporter who does have a challenge. But the challenge is a withered arm. The reporter doesn't rock back and forth the way Donald Trump did. And the reason Donald Trump mocked him is because that reporter once wrote a story in which he said there were Muslims who were cheering the fall of the Twin Towers. When Donald Trump publicly said, you know, there were Muslims who cheered the fall of the towers, people said, oh, that's another one of his lies. And the president mentioned this story written by this writer. And when people approached the writer and said, what about this? The writer said, well, I wasn't sure there were that many people. I wasn't sure of the number. And that's when Donald Trump mocked him. He was mocking the reporter for his perceived cowardice, not because of his so-called disability. I sent all of this to my friend, and my friend didn't care. And I noticed something. My friend did not want to un-hate Donald Trump. He was happy hating him. And when I gave him information that caused him to have what's called cognitive dissonance, he just dismissed it and kept insisting that Donald Trump had mocked a handicapped reporter. Well, I was all neighborhood. The one sport I excelled at was ping pong, but you couldn't get girls with ping pong. Now, one of our teachers, Mr. West, had a ping pong table. I heard he was a very good player, and he would let us use his table. And I asked him a couple of times during the semester, Mr. West, I hear you're very good. Will you play me? And Mr. West said, well, and he kept blowing me off. I couldn't figure out why. Last day of the semester, I come up to him and I said, Mr. West, please play me. He said, okay. We set up the table. I lost 21-4, 21-3, and I think 21-2. And we were putting the table away. Mr. West said, now you see, Larry, why I didn't want to play you. Compared to me, you're not very good. I know you think you are, but ping pong is like a relationship, male and female. There's no point in having a marriage unless both parties get something out of the transaction. And with you, the only way I would get something out of this transaction is if I gambled and I don't, or I charge you for lessons and you don't have any money. So it was a waste of time for me. You have to make sure that both people in a relationship get something out of it. In this relationship, I got nothing. I have two. Older brother Kirk, younger brother Dennis, both died. Older brother Kirk died September 13, 2019, literally 2 weeks before his 70th birthday. Had a heart attack. My younger brother Dennis died about 30 years ago. He was diabetic. My parents also died a few years ago, so now I am technically an orphan, and it really feels bizarre. I hope that when you reach this experience, and all of you will eventually, it will be way, way down the road. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Oh, great Eldersky, what are you wearing? Well, yeah! Just go to UncleTomShop.com to get yours. That's UncleTomShop.com. Now, as you know, we have been demonetized by YouTube. Why is this good news? It means we must be doing something right. To continue to get me uncensored and on demand, just go to LarryTube.com. That's LarryTube.com, because we've got a country to save. And I'll see you next time. LarryTube.com.